President Trump is preparing to undo another Obama-era environmental move. He calls it a massive federal land grab.
And now we're going to free it up, which is what should have happened in the first place. This should never have happened.
My name is Joe Carlson. I have spent the last decade and a half immersed in the power of story and place. I fell for this expansive patch of desert long before the Trump administration locked its hungry teeth into it. Past Moab, south on 191, on the outskirts of the small towns of Bluff, Blanding, and Mexican Hat. I knew all along that I was an outsider. In a place with so much history, it can be easy to feel that way. With every piece of information I gathered, it only made me realize just how small I was in this land compared to those who came before me. There was so much I didn't know. I didn't know that grave robbers and pot hunters literally have skeletons in their closets to this day. I didn't know, as I hiked for weeks through the deep waving canyons, from natural spring to natural spring, and slept alone atop the wind-blown mesas, that 5 tribal nations had come together and in the end successfully proposed the first tribally managed national monument. What I did know is that this place called me home in a way that is still very much a mystery to me. It healed me over the many miles and many nights. It called on a spiritual side of myself that I had tried in vain to explore, into the rock, maroon and red, streaked black with desert varnish, and pecked with giant alien-looking figures, a little closer to those great mysteries. And no matter how much time I spent there, I would forever remain on the outside looking in. This church of the high open desert remained in my mind's eye whenever I was elsewhere. Arnold Clifford is a Navajo botanist, ethnobotanist, geologist, and historian. His ethnobotanical knowledge stems from 7 generations of herbalists and medicine people. His personal herbarium, the Carrizo Mountain Herbarium, contains over 24,000 plant specimens.
My name is Arnold Clifford. My clans are Ozeta, which is my mother's clan, and then my father's clan is Topahe. At first I was going into mine engineering and geology, and then I said, man, my dad works in the mines. My grandfather worked in the mines, and so, I wanted to do something different. I went into geology and botany, studying like the geology of the Southwest and plants of the Southwest. I would think back on the countryside, like back in the 30s and 40s, and what it would have looked like. Before there was like any major roads, before there were any fences, before there was any kind of logging, when you had all the grandfather trees, and it was really still undisturbed, and so my imagination would run back there and think about those days, and so for me, I tried to. It brought on the thinking of how can I preserve that. The Valley of the Gods is where all these like Navajo medicine men used to go into and do their prayers and offerings and meditating and pilgrimages and stuff like that, There's a lot of pressure from the outside, industry, from the government themselves. They want this thing to happen. They want these things to move along, especially the energy development. It's a very sacred site, which literally is. Old prophets. Like old people who seek like new ways to do healing rites, like maybe for different parts of a body. They would go and seek out these areas, and when they get to these areas, what they gain is knowledge to heal, knowledge to create these rituals that will heal. These areas, these were why they were situated, why they thought so highly of them. We learned Navajo from the beginning, speaking Navajo and a lot of the Navajo stories and some of the Navajo concepts through my grandmother. In certain situations, she would tell you, this plant here, if this plant's in flower, don't bring the sheep over here because it's in, or if it's in fruit, don't bring them over here. You know, they're going to be poisonous at that time of the year. And so it was during that early training that I got from my grandmother in the stories about how she learned it from her grandfather, you know, her paternal grandfather.
Bears Ears, southeast Utah. This stretch of high desert set between the main arteries of the west, the San Juan and Colorado rivers, and bordered by the Navajo and Ute Mountain Ute reservations, was the last unexplored region in America. The first Spanish entradas to lay eyes upon the landscape now in and surrounding Bears Ears National Monument paid it little attention and weaved their way around its formidable rivers and red rock canyons. And terra incognita it remained, and has remained for most Americans well into today. Somehow, regardless of the depth of human history and uncomparable cultural and archaeological significance, value has been placed elsewhere, the effects of which can be found in the hundreds of open uranium mines that still leak into the waters, the land, and untold generations of people.
When you really start thinking about your place in life, you know, where do I fit into this whole scheme of things, you know? Exactly. You know, when you start thinking that way, that's when you start getting more precise on saying, all right, how come we have dirty air? You know, how come our air is not clean? How come like people throw trash, you know, here and there, you know? Right. Stuff like that, you know, you start thinking that way. And then there's others, you know, they don't see it that way. They're just like, you know, maybe we can find some more minerals out here, you know? Go mine it, you know? Man, one time I came back down the Smoky Mountain Road, man, that was bad. I've gotten stuck back here like several times, like after it rained. Oh, shit. One time we came down, go that way. Oh, yeah. Ooh. Watch it. Ready? I drove a Toyota one time when I was doing those wheat surveys. I got it stuck real bad 4 times. Yeah. And it gets overconfident, and then it got us in trouble a couple times. And that was the one that got him unstuck, you know, a lot of times. Really? Go that way a little bit. Yeah, just take it slow and let it walk right over and stay on your side. Yeah, all out here this is called like mixed desert shrub, you know. Right. There's like maybe at least like 10 different types of shrubs that are out there.
Bears Ears is sacred ground. Even if you can't comprehend it, it's sacred to the people who know it best, whose ancestors lie within its dirt. In this place, everything has a name, or a dozen of them. Every plant and every animal. Every geographic feature. They are all contained within a dozen stories. Those who know these stories walk through this land much differently than you or I. It is for them this issue is most important.
Ooh. I love it. This one here, it appears to be like a 2-horn, double horn. The one with the white body. This one has a duck on top of it. See, maybe some type of a water creature with a duck on top of it. These regions back in here, they were reserved for people that are on pilgrimages, you know, and they were coming back here to to do their offerings and their sacred prayers, you know. So this is probably a site where you can see how large it is. You can see it coming from afar, you know. So that will indicate to them saying, this is what my grandfather told me. My grandfather said to look out for this big creature that's like this, with this kind of shape, you know. And then on that rock wall, it talks about the river with some of the river animals. Sometimes I relate to these sites, you know. I can read their panels, you know.
Well, how can we know this land? How can we walk through it? How can we take care of it if we do not have a full record of its past? If we are missing pages from the book? This film is a beginning of that original inspiration to record and document those stories that link us to the land. Because within those stories are a set of guidelines for how to live, how to interact with the land underneath our own feet. And how can that knowledge help us, as Americans, to understand this land, the people, and our own place within it?